so GPL, and it was a competitor to DivX. Now, if you look at a lot of the media online, and I'm not talking now the other world of alleged copyright infringement, but just in general, Xvid is a very popular file format, which a codec which is supported by many DVD players now. Natively, and it sort of won the DivX Xvid war when users wanted a more open, more free platform for their media. So it was just something I was going to throw in, Roy, very briefly.
This reminds me of the issues with trademarks, where the company tries to take away a project and to not break the trademark situation or to violate any of the trademarks in existence in the USPTO is you just flip over the name. That just reminded me of the story. I'm not sure, you've probably not seen that. There is a company called DimDim, and they provide like collaborations to things like video of the web, things like web conferencing, and they've been advertised quite heavily by people to do. Malik, the person behind GigaWeb, he's been promoting them for about a year, always talking about how they have like the so-called free software or open source type of thing. I think they're based in Flash. It's one of those really strange projects, I think, and I'm not sure. You have all these web conferencing things that claim to be open source, but it's just a bunch of Flash plugins and things like that. And anyway, this company was sold to Salesforce, and Salesforce is shutting down the open source nature of the project. They basically turn it into some proprietary service, I suppose, and the community is extremely unhappy because they basically just kind of deemed the light on the deemed project. So it turns out they do intend to branch or to fork the project and to have something run it. They call it mid, and they even keep the same cases. So even though it says mid, the D is the large letter and the M they're all small. So it's really quite a tricky game with the it's not an acronym, but I suppose it's a bit like when the GNU tries to take an acronym and use it recursively. These people try all kinds of clever ways of not breaking a copyright situation. So that's so to speak.
Right. Well, moving on to our next sort of headline, and as is our wont, myself and Roy and Gordon, when he's on the show, we often go off on a tangent on another subject that's mildly related with the subject at hand. But to continue on with the news theme, we've got something I'm hoping, Roy, that you can give more information on, because certainly it's just something I glanced at while on the news, and that would be the Stuxnet news and the allegation that it was created by the American government and Israeli government. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can fill us in on with that?
I think people have known this for a while. You just had a confirmation from the New York Times, and I was pretty pleased to hear about it because I was very enraged about it. From my point of view, I heard the first time I heard this was about 3-4 months ago, after the worm was said to have affected the Siemens machines and all kinds of equipment which was running their software. And then it turned out that Iran was conspicuously affected by this worm more than some places. And only, I think within weeks or about a month, some experts were saying it apparently came from Israel, which kind of made me angry, obviously, because governments are not supposed to do these sorts of things. It also shows you what proprietary software is dangerous. But then, of course, they had some variants of these things, and people just kind of adopted the existing thing and turned it against people, businesses, cost people in terms of their jobs or in terms of their safety, people in homes and businesses, and all of this perhaps because somebody has an objective to do with trying to shut down the nuclear programs without it looking like they do that. So there is the political thing here. Like, are we actually opposing the nuclear weapons in Iraq and in Iran and that sort of question? And I suppose I looked at it from a very apolitical point of view, and I'm trying to view this as a misuse of technology against the person's freedom to use the program in isolation. So the question is, do you advocate using anti-features and having software that's hostile towards the user because you can decide, oh, the user might be malicious, so we want to have software that restricts the user and has the user punished because it keeps us, safer or whatever. So obviously it doesn't keep us safer because they use the same type of thing against the other side, and so it goes. It's a bit like the nuclear threat itself. It's kind of when you start to use these electronic weapons against one company, or you have backdoors or who knows what, a country like China sooner or later actually uses exactly that to intrude the U.S. services and actually extract all kinds of sensitive data from there. So,
I mean, it's certainly nothing. Using the technology in this way is certainly nothing new. If and I don't want to say the words rumours because I don't know how corroborated the stories were, but certainly I've read quite a few articles from the Cold War period where it was alleged that America was intentionally releasing broken computer equipment to the Russians in order that it would fail. Again, I don't know how accurate that piece of history is. It's I was desperately trying to have a look, and while you were speaking, to see if I could find an article to link to.
There is a story about Dell sending some defective hardware to Microsoft at the end of last year.
No, this was during.
About that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And it was certainly. I will find it before I complete the show notes. But it was detailing the how America let Russian spies take intentionally made faulty hardware back to Russia so that it would fail. And I wish I could find it, but I can't. But I'll certainly find it in for the show notes and throw it on there because it was a very interesting piece of history. Whether it's true or not, it's certainly made interesting reading. In respect of predictions for the future, Roy, do you think this is going to be something that we see more of? This type of attack?
I think with WikiLeaks, you see lots of people seeing what happened with China. Well, there is the affair, the very, very famous affair from around January 2010 with Google and China. So people are talking about, is it Google against China? Is it China against the U.S. government? And what does Hillary Clinton do in the whole thing? Why is she addressing nations in this way? Like it's more of a national thing between, as opposed to something like Google versus China. And now we actually got some answers. And we also found out, and I don't think we talked about it in previous shows, that Microsoft was giving source code to a company which was training hackers for the Chinese government. And they gave them source code of Windows, which of course means they very easily get hacks for it. They can do zero-day flaws and who knows what. So you see increasingly that governments do play a role in the development of software, trying to tell companies what to do. Back when I was talking about it in 2006, people would come up with words like paranoid, it would never happen, and Microsoft never gives the source code to anyone, and then we get some reports, and then people kind of stuff to like, okay, they give the source code to some people, but not to hackers. And then you get evidence of that too. So, eventually, you do find that the access to source code is something inevitable, in the very same way that WikiLeaks shows that cables will be seen sooner or later. So people have to behave better, and people have to construct code that's more secure, because sooner or later people will get your code, and people don't really have much of an issue if they really want to get in the source code that they work on at work, copying and pasting things. They could actually get this to their house, or to, I don't know, share this with some people, and you have lots of stories like that these days. So trying to restrict the sharing of something that's really easy to share, even things like music and videos, it just shows you a broken way of doing things in many ways. I personally think. There is also the issue I wanted to bring up, maybe I'll do this in a moment, is the issue of hypocrisy, because we always assume there is like the good side and the bad side, the good guys and the bad guys, and usually the people who are talking, there are the good guys and the other side is the bad guys, and there is no assumption that both sides can be bad. And of course, when you do the exact same thing that they do, you say, well, it's okay because we do it and we're the good guys and they're the bad guys doing the same thing, and that's not acceptable. So.
Well, we covered the Stuxnet issue. Have you got any other stories before we move on to a bit of a debate about a few issues that have arisen over the last week? Is there any more subjects you want to cover?
Been finding lots of news about Migo recently, and that's probably because I'm subscribed to quite a few accounts that talk about new software for Mimo and Migo, and I'm quite curious about it because I'm a bit concerned that we have a bit of monoculture with mobile Linux